The first thing Lily Walker heard that morning was not the soft hum of the bank's heater, or the squeak of wet shoes over polished marble, or the low murmur of customers waiting behind brass stanchions with their coffee cups and folded newspapers. It was laughter. Sharp, clean, and public. It came from Richard Mallory, the branch manager of Grand Harbor National Bank in Charleston, South Carolina, a man in a navy-tailored suit with silver cufflinks, a smooth side part, and the kind of smile that never reached his pale gray eyes. Outside, a cold drizzle tapped against the tall glass windows, blurring the view of parked Cadillacs, black Lincoln SUVs, and one old blue Ford F-150 with rust along the wheel wells. Inside, the bank smelled like roasted espresso, lemon-polished wood, warm printer paper, and expensive cologne. The floor was cream marble, veined with brown. The counters were dark mahogany with a glossy finish, and framed photographs of Charleston Harbor hung under soft gold. Lighting that made every wealthy customer look calmer than they felt. Ethan Walker stood on the other side of Richard's desk in a faded denim jacket, a gray Henley shirt, worn work boots still damp from the rain, and a baseball cap tucked under one arm. His broad shoulders were stiff, his jaw locked, his blue eyes lowered only long enough to glance at his daughter. Lily, 8 years old, held his left hand with both of hers. Her red coat was buttoned wrong near the collar. Her school backpack hung from one shoulder, and her two little braids were slightly uneven because Ethan had done them at 6:10 that morning before packing her peanut butter sandwich. On the manager's desk, beside a silver nameplate and a leather pen holder, lay a printed statement showing an overdraft protection fee of exactly $9. Ethan had asked, quietly and politely, for the charge to be corrected on Lily's savings account. Richard looked at the paper, looked at Ethan's boots, then leaned back in his chair with a small, cruel grin. "You can't afford $9? He laughed, loud enough for the waiting customers to turn their heads. "If you're watching from a small town, a big city, a military family, or just somewhere where you still believe respect matters, take a second to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. Because stories like this remind us that a person's worth is never written on their clothes, their car, or the balance someone assumes they have. Now let's get back to the video." Ethan did not answer immediately. He felt Lily's fingers tighten around his, and that tiny pressure hurt more than Richard's insult. It was the pressure of a child trying not to cry in public. Behind them, an older woman in a beige coat lowered her eyes. A businessman near the coffee station paused with his paper cup halfway to his mouth. A young teller behind the glass window froze, her hand resting on a stack of deposit slips. The bank had become quiet in that unnatural way. Places become quiet when everyone hears something wrong, but no one knows whether they are brave enough to name it. Richard, mistaking Ethan's silence for shame, tapped the statement with one polished finger. "Mr. Walker, these fees are standard. If $9 is creating hardship, perhaps you should reconsider how you manage your household account." The words landed heavily, each one dressed as policy, but shaped like contempt. Lily looked up at her father. Her green eyes were shiny, confused, wounded. "Daddy," she whispered, so softly Ethan almost missed it. "Are we poor because Mommy died?" Ethan's throat tightened. He could still hear Sarah's voice from 2 years earlier, weak from chemo but steady with love, telling him, "Don't let money raise her, Ethan. You raise her." He had promised that. He had promised to teach Lily humility, discipline, gratitude, and the old-fashioned American belief that a family could stand tall even when life knocked them down. Richard sighed, theatrically, and turned his monitor slightly, not enough for Ethan to see the screen, but enough to suggest authority. His office walls were glass from waist-height up, and beyond them the lobby watched in fragments, faces reflected in polished wood, rain-streaked windows, the American flag standing beside the mortgage consultation desk, its red and white stripes still against a brass pole. A small ceramic bowl of peppermints sat near Richard's keyboard. A framed certificate from a leadership's seminar hung behind him, along with a photograph of him shaking hands with the bank's regional director at a charity golf event. Everything in that office had been arranged to communicate success, trust, and refinement, yet the air inside it felt cold and narrow. Ethan looked down at Lily's statement again. The account had been opened 3 months earlier with $35 from Lily's birthday money, then built with little deposits from chores. $5 for helping rake leaves, $3 for folding towels without being asked, $10 from selling lemonade to neighbors after church on a Saturday afternoon. Ethan had brought her to the bank because he wanted her to see saving as a habit, not a number. He wanted her to learn that money earned honestly carried meaning. But now the lesson had been hijacked by a man who saw worn denim and assumed failure. Ethan lifted his eyes. He did not raise his voice. He did not point a finger. He only asked, "Did you review the account notes before you spoke to me like that?" Richard blinked once, irritated. "I don't need a full review to explain a $9 fee." Ethan nodded slowly, as if absorbing the answer not as an excuse, but as evidence. Lily pressed herself closer to his side. He felt the tremble in her shoulder. That was the moment something shifted in him, not into anger, but into decision. Ethan placed his cap on the edge of Richard's desk, with careful control. His hands were large, rough around the knuckles, with a faint scar running across the back of his right thumb from a deployment repair job outside Kandahar 15 years earlier. He had been humiliated before. The army had taught him to swallow dust, fear, pain, and pride when the mission mattered. Fatherhood had taught him something harder. Children remember not only what hurts them, but how the adults they trust respond to the hurt. He turned slightly toward Lily and crouched until his eyes were level with hers. "Listen to me." "Sweetheart," he said, his voice low and steady. "We are not poor because we lost your mom. We are not small because someone talks down to us. And we do not become rude just because someone else forgot how to be decent." Lily nodded, though one tear slipped over her cheek. Ethan wiped it away with his thumb, then stood. His face changed in a way no one in the room fully understood. The tired widower in a faded jacket was still there, but behind him appeared the soldier, the founder, the man who had signed contracts in rooms where one mistake cost millions and one lie could ruin lives. He looked back at Richard Mallory and said calmly, "I'd like to speak with your private banking director." Richard gave a short laugh again, softer this time but still arrogant. "Private banking?" Ethan reached into his jacket, removed a plain black wallet, and slid a metal client card across the desk. The card landed beside the $9 statement with a quiet click. Richard's smile faltered. Ethan's voice did not. "Then I want every account under the Walker Family Holdings profile liquidated and transferred out today." He paused, letting the words settle into the marble, the mahogany, the glass walls, and the watching silence. All $86 million. For several seconds after Ethan said the number, nobody moved. Richard Mallory stared at the metal client card as if it had changed shape on his desk, his polished confidence draining from his face in thin, visible layers. The young teller behind the glass window leaned closer to her monitor. The businessman near the coffee station lowered his cup completely. Lily looked from the card to her father, not understanding what $86 million meant, only understanding that the man who had laughed at them had suddenly stopped laughing. Richard cleared his throat, reached for the card with 2 fingers, and tried to recover the tone of authority he had worn so easily a minute earlier. "Mr. Walker, I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding," he said, but his voice had lost its smoothness. Ethan remained standing, one hand on Lily's shoulder, the other resting beside the printed statement. "There was," Ethan answered. "You misunderstood who deserves respect." The words were not loud, but they carried through the office glass and into the lobby. Richard's eyes flicked toward the watching customers, then back to the card. He typed the client number into his system, faster than before, with the nervous rhythm of a man beginning to realize that the person he dismissed might have the power to expose him. The screen changed. His face went still. Walker Family Holdings, multi-account relationship, private investment custody, treasury ladder, charitable trust reserve, total relationship value, $86,421.39. Richard swallowed so hard Ethan saw his throat move. Ethan had never wanted Lily to see that number. In the small white house near Mount Pleasant, where the porch boards creaked and the American flag hung from a weathered bracket beside the front door, money was treated like a tool kept in a locked shed. Useful, necessary, but never something to worship. Their mornings were ordinary by design. Ethan packed Lily's lunch in brown paper bags, wrote small notes on napkins, checked her math homework at the kitchen table, and made burnt toast more often than he admitted. He drove the same old Ford because his father, a retired mechanic and Vietnam-era patriot, who believed a man should fix what he owned before buying something new, had left it to him. Lily knew they had enough for groceries, school supplies, and the occasional strawberry milkshake at Cookout after a good report card. She did not know her father could have bought the entire block in cash. Ethan had kept that from her because Sarah had begged him to. Let her grow up knowing effort before ease, Sarah had whispered during one of her last clear nights, her wedding ring loose on her thin finger, her face pale against the hospital pillow. Let her know family before fortune, Ethan had promised. And after Sarah died, promises became the only structure holding him upright. Before he became the quiet man in the faded jacket, Ethan Walker had been Staff Sergeant Walker, U.S. Army Logistics, the kind of soldier who could rebuild a supply plan under fire and still remember which private had a sick mother back home. He had served 12 years, most of them moving equipment, medicine, water, and repair parts through places where dust got into everything and fear had to be folded away like a map. He was not the loudest man in his unit, but he was the one people trusted when plans broke. After leaving the Army, he took what he knew about movement, fuel, supply chains, emergency routing, and disaster response, and built a software company in a rented garage behind a hardware store outside Raleigh, North Carolina. The company helped hospitals, National Guard units, and emergency agencies move supplies faster during hurricanes, wildfires, and floods. Ethan did not build it to get rich. He built it because he had once watched bottled water sit in the wrong warehouse while families waited in a storm shelter 3 counties away. When a major American defense and emergency management contractor bought the company 7 years later, the newspapers called him a visionary veteran founder. Ethan hated the word visionary. Sarah laughed at it, kissed his cheek, and said, "Fine then, you're just a stubborn, good man with a spreadsheet." Sarah had been the bright part of his life, the kind of woman who could make a grocery store line feel like a neighborhood meeting. She taught 2nd grade, wore yellow cardigans, saved every handmade card a student gave her, and believed that children became brave when adults kept their word. She met Ethan at a 4th of July community picnic in Wilmington, where he was helping raise a flagpole after a storm bent the old one. He remembered the exact moment she entered his life, white sundress, brown hair pinned back, lemonade in one hand, a stack of children's books in the other, telling a group of kids that the flag mattered most when people treated each other with decency beneath it. Ethan had fallen in love before he admitted he was even interested. Their marriage was not glamorous. It was car payments, late-night invoices, baby monitors, backyard cookouts, scraped knees, hospital bills, and Sarah singing off-key while Lily clapped from a high chair. But it was whole. It was the kind of conservative, steady family life Ethan had wanted since childhood. One table, one home, one set of values, one promise that nobody in that house would be abandoned when things got hard. Then cancer arrived without drama at first, just fatigue, bruising, tests, more tests, and a doctor who stopped smiling before he spoke. During Sarah's illness, Ethan's wealth became both a blessing and a punishment. It paid for specialists in Charleston, clinical consultations in Houston, private transportation when her immune system was too weak for crowded airports, and a nurse who knew how to speak gently to Lily. But it could not buy the one thing Ethan wanted. It could not stop Lily from drawing pictures of Mommy with angel wings before anyone had used the word goodbye. It could not stop Sarah from losing weight until Ethan could feel every bone in her hand. It could not stop the final night, when rain hit the hospital window, and Sarah asked Ethan to bring Lily close. Lily was 6 then, wearing pink pajamas and clutching a stuffed bald eagle from a museum gift shop. Sarah touched Lily's cheek and told her, "Be kind, but don't ever let someone make you feel small." Then she looked at Ethan and said, "Don't hide from life after I'm gone. She'll need more than your protection. She'll need your heart." Ethan nodded, but after the funeral, his heart became a locked room. He gave Lily schedules, meals, School drop-offs, bedtime stories, clean, laundry, and steady discipline. He gave her everything a responsible father should. But warmth frightened him, because warmth reminded him of what could be lost. That was why the savings account mattered. It was not about $9. It was about Lily learning that life could still be built in small, honest steps. Every Friday, Ethan would place a few bills on the kitchen table and ask Lily to decide what went into her spending envelope, what went into her giving envelope, and what went into savings. Sometimes she chose carefully. Sometimes she chose based on whether the ice cream truck had come down their street that week. Ethan never mocked her mistakes. He showed her the numbers, explained choices, and told her that freedom in America came with responsibility, not entitlement. A dollar earned with honest work weighs more than $10 handed over for nothing, he would say, echoing his father. Lily would roll her eyes and answer, "That sounds like Grandpa." Ethan would smile, because it did. When she saved enough from chores and birthday money, he brought her to Grand Harbor National Bank because Sarah had kept her teacher account there, and because Ethan still believed local institutions should honor local families. The account was supposed to be a bridge between mother and daughter, past and future, grief and growth. Instead, Richard Mallory had turned it into a stage for humiliation. Richard had built his career on reading appearances. He knew which clients arrived with lawyers, which ones wore watches that signaled old money, which widows were lonely enough to be talked into unnecessary products, and which working families could be pushed around because they feared paperwork. He had not always been cruel. Years earlier, he had been a junior loan officer with ambition and a cheap suit, eager to prove he belonged in rooms where other men inherited their confidence. But over time, ambition hardened into contempt. He confused wealth with virtue, polish with intelligence, and silence with weakness. Grand Harbor National Bank rewarded him for bringing in high-net-worth clients, not for noticing the dignity of ordinary ones. By the time Ethan walked into his office, Richard had trained himself to see a faded jacket before a father, worn boots before service, a small balance before a human story. The $9 fee was automatic, but the laughter was not. The laughter was a choice. And in the lobby, as customers watched Richard's face turn pale, several people quietly understood that the morning had become bigger than a banking mistake. It had become a test of what kind of country people claimed to believe in when a man with no visible status asked to be treated fairly. Lily, however, did not care about institutions, status, or moral tests. She cared that her father's hand felt different on her shoulder, heavier and colder, and that the room had begun to look at them like they were part of a movie she did not want to be in. "Daddy," she whispered, "did I do something wrong with my account?" Ethan looked down and felt the old protective instinct rise so fast it almost became rage. He wanted to turn Richard's desk over. He wanted to say every sharp thing he had learned to keep behind his teeth. But Lily's eyes held him in place. A father's anger could protect a child for one moment and frighten her for years. He crouched again, ignoring Richard, ignoring the lobby, ignoring the sudden ring of a phone on the desk. "No, baby," he said. "You did everything right." Then why did he laugh? Ethan took a slow breath. Because sometimes grown-ups forget that being important at work doesn't make them better than anyone else. Lily absorbed this with the seriousness of a child filing away a permanent lesson. "Are you mad?" she asked. Ethan glanced at Richard, then back at her. "Yes," he said, "but being mad doesn't mean we stop being decent." That sentence landed harder on Richard than any insult would have, because it gave him no argument to fight. Richard stood abruptly, smoothing his jacket as if fabric could restore control. "Mr. Walker, please understand. I had no way of knowing the full extent of your relationship with our institution." Ethan straightened slowly. "That's the problem," he said. "You believed you needed to know my balance before offering basic respect." Richard opened his mouth, closed it, then reached for the phone. His fingers trembled slightly as he called the private banking. "Floor upstairs." While he spoke in a lowered voice, Ethan looked through the glass wall at the American flag in the lobby. He thought of every briefing room, field tent, airport hangar, and emergency operations center, where he had seen that flag hanging over tired people trying to do the right thing. Patriotism to Ethan had never been loud. It was not a bumper sticker or a speech. It was keeping your word, showing up for family, paying workers on time, standing for the anthem because you understood sacrifice, and treating a stranger's dignity as seriously as your own. Sarah had believed that too. She had taught children to place their hands over their hearts, and then reminded them that hands were also for helping. Ethan felt a sudden ache behind his ribs, not only because he missed her, but because he had been hiding from the version of himself she trusted most. He had protected Lily from money, but maybe he had also protected himself from responsibility. A young assistant, manager named Claire Bennett, appeared at the office doorway with a tablet held tightly against her chest. She was 29, with tired brown eyes, a navy blazer, and the anxious posture of someone who had seen Richard mistreat people before, but had never held enough power to stop him. "Mr. Mallory," she said carefully, "private banking is asking whether this is a full liquidation request or an external transfer of custody." Richard shot her a look, but Claire kept her eyes on Ethan. There was, apology in her face before she spoke it. Ethan noticed. Soldiers noticed small courage. Fathers did too. "External transfer," Ethan said. "Full relationship, personal holdings, trust reserves, foundation accounts, all treasury instruments as soon as compliance clears them. I'll sign whatever is required." Claire nodded once, her expression shifting from shock to professional focus. "Yes, sir." Lily watched the exchange, then tugged Ethan's sleeve. "Is that a lot of money?" she asked. "A few." Customers pretended not to listen. Ethan lowered his voice. "It's more than we need." "Then why do we have it?" That question was harder than Richard's insult. Ethan looked at her small face, the red coat, the uneven braids, the little patch of the flag on her backpack. "Because years ago I built something that helped people," he said, "and now I need to do a better job using what came from it." The first obstacle came almost immediately, dressed in procedure. Richard explained that large jaw. Transfers required verification, signatures, possible penalties, market timing disclosures, senior approval, and review by the regional office. He used the words like sandbags, stacking them between Ethan and consequence. Ethan listened without interrupting. He knew bureaucracy. He had moved medical generators across borders with less drama than Richard was creating over accounts his own bank already administered. "Follow the law," Ethan said. "Follow every compliance rule, but do not confuse. Delay with refusal." Claire's eyes flickered, almost a smile. Richard flushed. "No one is refusing anything." "Good," Ethan replied. "Then we agree." The lobby slowly resumed motion, but not its earlier comfort. Whispers moved from chair to chair. A retired Marine in a tan jacket adjusted his cap and watched Ethan with recognition, not because he knew his name, but because he knew controlled fury when he saw it. A mother with a toddler on her lap pulled the child closer. The older woman in the beige coat dabbed at one eye with a tissue. People had entered the bank that morning to deposit checks, open CDs, refinance mortgages, and complain about interest rates. Now they were witnessing a man use power without cruelty, and that was rare enough to hold them still. As the process moved upstairs and phone calls multiplied, Richard tried a softer tactic. He invited Ethan and Lily into a private conference room with frosted glass walls, a long walnut table, black leather chairs, a silver tray of bottled water, and a faint smell of dry erase markers. "No need for the entire lobby to be involved," Richard said. Ethan understood the offer for what it was. Not privacy for Lily, but containment for the bank. Still, he accepted because Lily's cheeks were still flushed with embarrassment, and a father knew when a child needed fewer eyes on her. Inside the conference room, Lily sat beside him and swung her feet above the carpet. Claire brought her a cup of water and a small pack of plain crackers from the employee break room. "Thank you," Lily said automatically. Claire's face softened. "You're welcome, sweetheart." Richard stood near the screen at the end of the table, suddenly performing humility. "Mr. Walker, I apologize for any embarrassment. I didn't intend—" Ethan raised one hand, not aggressively, just enough to stop the sentence. "Don't apologize for my reaction. Apologize to my daughter for laughing at her account." The room became very still. Richard looked at Lily as though seeing her for the first time, not as an accessory to a poor man, not as a small inconvenience, but as a child whose memory he had just entered. "I'm sorry," he said stiffly. Lily studied him. "You shouldn't laugh at people for $9, she said. Her voice was small, but it had Sarah's clarity in it. That sentence reopened something in Ethan that grief had sealed. He saw Sarah at their kitchen sink, sleeves rolled up, telling Lily that kindness was not weakness. He saw his father under the hood of the Ford, saying that a man's name was worth more than his bank account. He saw himself in uniform, younger and harder, promising scared soldiers that the convoy would move when the road cleared. He had spent 2 years trying to make Lily's life safe by keeping it small. Same house, same truck, same routines, same careful distance from people who asked too many questions about how he was really doing. But children did not heal inside locked rooms. They healed by watching. Love become action. Ethan looked across the table at Richard, then at Claire, then at the transfer documents appearing one by one on the tablet. "I don't want anyone fired because I'm angry," he said. "I want the record reviewed because this didn't start with me." Men like him don't practice contempt for the first time in front of $86 million. Richard's face tightened. Claire lowered her eyes, and that was enough confirmation. Ethan turned to Lily. "When someone does wrong, we don't just ask whether it hurt us," he told her. "We ask who else got hurt when nobody was watching." Lily nodded slowly. She did not fully understand investigations or institutional misconduct, but she understood fairness. She understood that her father was not taking money away because he was embarrassed. He was taking it away because the room had shown him a responsibility he could no longer ignore. By late morning, Margaret Collins, the regional director, was already on her way from Columbia, in a black sedan, and the entire branch seemed to breathe differently under the knowledge of her arrival. Compliance officers called, private banking directors emailed. A senior relationship manager, who had once tried for 6 months to get Ethan to attend a donor dinner, left 3 urgent voicemails. Richard moved in and out of the conference room with a face that had become carefully neutral, but sweat gathered near his temple. Ethan signed documents, verified identities, approved recorded confirmations, and answered security questions about accounts he rarely touched. Through it all, Lily stayed beside him, drawing on the back of an unused deposit slip with a blue bank pen. She drew 3 stick figures holding hands in front of a house. 1 tall man, 1 little girl, and 1 woman with wings above her shoulders. Ethan saw it and had to look away. "Daddy?" Lily asked. "When Mommy said good people still exist, did she mean people like Miss Claire?" Ethan looked toward the glass wall where Claire was quietly helping an elderly man reset an online banking password with more patience than her job required. "Yes," he said, "exactly like that." Lily added a small figure in a blazer to the drawing. "Then maybe banks can have good people and mean people at the same time." Ethan gave the first real smile of the day. Sad, but honest. "Most places do," he said. "That's why good people have to be brave enough to speak." Margaret Collins arrived at 11:27 a.m., carrying the cold air with her through the glass doors, like the storm had followed her from Columbia. She was in her late 50s, tall, composed, silver hair cut neatly at her jaw, wearing a charcoal coat over a cream blouse and a pearl pin shaped like a palmetto tree. The lobby changed the moment she entered. Employees straightened. Richard stepped out of the conference room too quickly, nearly bumping into a customer with a cane. Margaret did not look at him first. Her eyes moved across the marble floor, the mahogany counters, the American flag, the customers pretending not to watch, and finally to the little girl in the red coat sitting beside Ethan Walker with a bank pen in her hand. Margaret had spent 31 years in finance, long enough to know when money was the issue and when money was only the evidence. "Mr. Walker," she said, entering the conference room with a controlled breath. "I'm Margaret Collins. I oversee this region. I am deeply sorry for what happened here today." Ethan stood, but did not shake her hand immediately. He looked tired now, not weak, but tired in the way a man looks after holding back a storm for the sake of a child. "My daughter opened an account to learn responsibility," he said. "Your manager taught her humiliation instead." Margaret's expression tightened. She turned to Richard. "Leave us for a moment." Richard's face lost another shade of color. "Margaret, I think I should clarify." "No," she said, quiet but final. You should wait outside." For the first time that morning, Richard obeyed without a word. When the door closed, Margaret sat across from Ethan and placed a thin folder on the table. She did not open it yet. "Before we discuss the transfer," she said, "there is something you should know. Your name is familiar to me, Mr. Walker. Not because of the account value." Ethan's eyes narrowed slightly. Margaret opened the folder and slid out a printed page showing a list of annual charitable disbursements, all marked through a donor-advised structure with the name partially hidden. For 4 years, an anonymous fund connected to this bank has paid emergency grants to widows of service members, school fees for children of fallen soldiers, and medical travel costs for families from Fort Jackson, Camp Lejeune, and Joint Base Charleston. My office never knew who stood behind it until compliance pulled your full relationship this morning." Lily stopped drawing. Ethan's jaw tightened, but not from anger. He had kept Sarah's, giving private because she had believed charity should never become a mirror. Margaret's voice softened. "You paid the mortgage of a Marine widow in Beaufort last winter. You covered a surgery deposit for the son of a National Guard medic. You funded 26 scholarships under your wife's name without attending a single ceremony." Lily slowly turned toward her father. Her green eyes were wide, wet, and searching. "Daddy," she whispered, "you helped all those people?" Ethan looked at her, and the locked room inside him trembled. "Your mom started it," he said. "I just kept sending the checks." Margaret closed the folder with care, as if it contained something sacred. "Mr. Walker, I cannot undo what my employee said," she continued, "but I can promise a full internal review, immediate escalation to ethics, and a written apology to your daughter." Ethan looked through the frosted glass wall. Richard stood near the lobby printer, staring down at his phone, suddenly smaller than the title on his office door. A part of Ethan wanted to let the man fall publicly, to make every customer hear every detail of every complaint ever buried under procedure. But Lily was beside him, and the lesson still mattered more than the punishment. "Bring him back in," Ethan said. Margaret hesitated, then nodded to Claire through the glass. Richard entered with the stiff posture of someone preparing for discipline but still hoping for escape. Ethan remained seated. That choice alone unsettled Richard. "Mr. Mallory," Ethan said, "my daughter asked me why you laughed. I gave her the best answer I could. Now I want you to give her yours." Richard looked at Margaret, then Claire, then Ethan. His mouth opened, but nothing polished came out. Lily sat very still, her small hands folded around the bank pen. Finally, Richard looked at her, not above her, not around her, but at her. "I laughed because I judged your father by how he looked," he said, each word uncomfortable. "And because I thought a small account meant a small person. I was wrong." Lily's chin quivered. "You made me feel like saving my chore money was stupid," she said. Richard's eyes dropped. "It wasn't," he answered. "It was responsible." The room held that silence, and for the first time all morning, the apology had weight. Ethan pushed Lily's drawing gently toward the center of the table. It showed the house, the father, the little girl, the mother with wings, and Claire in her blazer. There was no drawing of Richard. Ethan noticed, but said nothing. "I came here ready to move money," he said. "But my daughter came here to learn what money means. So I'm going to finish that lesson." He turned to Margaret. "The transfer still happens. Every dollar leaves this institution as soon as legally possible." Richard closed his eyes for half a second, as if the sentence had physically struck him. Ethan continued, his voice steady but heavier now. "But 20 million of it will go into a new fund in Charleston, the Sarah Walker Family Trust. It will help single parents, military widows, veterans' children, and working families who are one fee, one medical bill, or one missed shift away from losing their footing." Lily stared at him, tears slipping down both cheeks. "Can it help kids who feel embarrassed too?" she asked. Ethan's face broke then, not completely, but enough for everyone in the room to see the father beneath the discipline. He reached for her hand. "Yes, sweetheart," he said. "Especially them." Margaret covered her mouth with one hand. Claire wiped quickly under one eye. Even Richard looked shaken, because he had expected revenge and instead was witnessing purpose. Ethan looked at his daughter and said the words Sarah had been waiting 2 years for him to live. "Your mum was right. Money should never raise you. but it can help us raise up somebody else. If this story of a humble single dad proving everyone wrong has you watching until the end, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring you more emotional stories of sacrifice, hidden strength, and unforgettable twists. Now let's get back to the video. The final confirmation call came through on the conference room speaker at 12:14 p.m. A senior private banking officer verified Ethan's identity, confirmed the relationship value, listed the required stages of liquidation, and asked whether he understood the financial consequences of moving all holdings out of Grand Harbor National Bank. Ethan looked at Lily before answering. She was no longer hiding behind his sleeve. She sat upright now, holding the drawing against her chest, her red coat still buttoned wrong, her eyes still damp but no longer ashamed. "I understand," Ethan said. "Proceed." The officer asked for verbal authorization. Ethan gave it clearly. Then Margaret, following procedure, asked one final question for the record. "Mr. Walker, may I ask the reason for termination of the banking relationship?" Richard stood near the wall, motionless. Claire held her tablet close. The lobby beyond the glass seemed to quiet again, as if the building itself leaned in. Ethan's eyes moved to the $9 statement still lying on the table, then to his daughter, then to the flag standing in the lobby. "Loss of trust," he said, "and a failure to recognize human dignity before financial worth." The words were entered into the official record. Richard lowered his head. Lily reached for Ethan's hand and whispered, "Mommy would be proud of you." Ethan had survived combat roads, boardroom negotiations, hospital corridors, and graveside silence, but that sentence almost took him to his knees. He squeezed her hand and whispered back, "I hope so, baby." And in that cold conference room, surrounded by leather chairs, compliance forms, and the wreckage of one arrogant laugh, Ethan Walker finally understood that grief had not emptied him. It had been waiting for him to turn love into action. 3 months later, the sign above a restored brick building on King Street read, "Sarah Walker Family Trust," engraved in brushed steel beside a small American flag that moved gently in the spring wind. The building had once been an empty insurance office with dusty windows and cracked tile. But Ethan had turned it into a warm, practical place with oak desks, soft lamps, framed photographs of Charleston families, a children's corner with picture books and crayons, and a coffee station that smelled like cinnamon, fresh, grounds, and paper cups. There were no marble floors meant to intimidate people, no glass walls that made pain feel like a performance, and no receptionist trained to judge shoes before names. On opening morning, veterans in pressed jackets stood beside single mothers in work uniforms. Grandparents raising children stood near young fathers holding toddlers, and a line of people waited, not with shame, but with the cautious hope of those who had been disappointed by systems before. Ethan wore a dark blazer over a simple white shirt, his beard neatly trimmed, his posture still military straight, but softer around the eyes. Lily stood at his side in a navy dress and the same red coat, now too short at the sleeves because she had grown. She held the ribbon-cutting scissors with both hands while Ethan rested one steady palm on her shoulder. A framed photograph of Sarah was mounted in the lobby behind them. In it, she was laughing in a yellow cardigan, her hair blown slightly by wind, her eyes bright with the kind of warmth Ethan had spent 2 years trying not to miss too loudly. Beneath the photograph, a line was written in simple black letters. "A family's strength is measured by how many people it helps stand again." The first person the trust helped that morning was a father named Marcus Reed, a former Navy mechanic from Norfolk who had moved to South Carolina for work after his wife died in a car accident. He arrived with 2 boys, a folder full of overdue bills, and the hunched shoulders of a man who had been told no so many times he expected it before asking. His youngest son clutched a toy fire truck with 1 wheel missing. His oldest kept staring at the polished floor as if afraid to look anyone in the eye. The emergency was small by the standards of wealthy people. $312 for a utility deposit, $79 for a school uniform balance, $46 for medication not fully covered by insurance, and a late fee that had made everything worse. But Ethan knew small numbers. could become cliffs when a family was already exhausted. He sat across from Marcus at a round wooden table, not behind a desk, and listened without interrupting. Lily sat nearby with the two boys, helping them choose crayons. When Marcus apologized for needing help, Ethan shook his head. "You kept your family together through grief," he said. "That is not failure." Marcus looked away, blinking hard. Ethan recognized that movement because he had made it himself in hospital hallways, grocery aisles, and the front seat of the Ford when Lily was asleep, and he finally allowed himself to break for 30 seconds. The trust paid the bills that afternoon, but more than that, it assigned Marcus a financial counselor, connected him with a veteran-friendly employer, and placed the boys in a summer program funded by the foundation. Ethan did not pose for a picture. He did not issue a press release. He simply shook Marcus's hand and told him, "When you're steady again, help somebody else." Grand Harbor National Bank changed too, though not in the way people expected from gossip. Richard Mallory was removed after the internal review found years of complaints softened, minimized, or buried under customer service language. Some were from elderly clients confused by fees. Some were from working parents embarrassed in front of tellers. Some were from veterans who had been treated like inconveniences when their paperwork was complicated. Richard did not go to prison, and Ethan never demanded public destruction. He only asked that truth be written down where silence had protected arrogance. Margaret Collins ordered new dignity training across the region, but she also did something more meaningful. She promoted Claire Bennett to branch manager after customers and employees described the quiet ways she had helped people long before she had power. On Claire's first day in the office, she removed the old leadership seminar certificate from the wall and replaced it with a framed sentence: "Look at the person before you look at the account." Weeks later, she received a handwritten note from Lily in careful pencil. It said, "Thank you for being one of the good people." Claire kept it in her top drawer. Ethan eventually returned to the bank, not as a client, but as a speaker for employees. He stood in the same lobby where he had been humiliated, beside the same flag, and told them that American values were not proven by how loudly people praised hard work, family, service, and decency, but by whether they protected those values when the person in front of them looked tired, poor, grieving, or invisible. A year after the day of the $9 fee, Ethan and Lily drove the old Ford to the waterfront at sunset. The truck still rattled when it idled, and Ethan still refused to replace it because Lily said it sounded like Grandpa clearing his throat. They sat on a bench facing Charleston Harbor, eating fries from a paper bag, watching the sky turn orange behind the masts and rooftops. Lily leaned against him and said, "Daddy, I used to think Mommy left and everything got smaller." Ethan swallowed, keeping his eyes on the water. "And now?" he asked. Lily thought for a moment. "Now I think maybe love can get bigger if you give it somewhere to go." Ethan closed his eyes, and for the first time in years, the memory of Sarah did not feel like a wound opening. It felt like a hand on his back, pushing him gently forward. He looked at his daughter, at the little girl who had once cried in a bank because a man laughed at $9, and he saw not shame, not fear, but a future built on courage. "You're right," he said. "Love has to move." Lily slipped her hand into his. Behind them, the city lights came on one by one, and somewhere downtown, a family who had almost fallen through the cracks was eating dinner together because one father had chosen dignity over rage and purpose over pride. Ethan Walker had withdrawn $86 million from a bank, but what he truly reclaimed was his heart, his daughter's confidence, and the promise that no fortune is worth more than the way we treat people when they have nothing to offer us. Have you ever helped someone at their lowest moment and discovered that your kindness changed their life forever? Drop a little heart in the comments if you believe love, kindness, and quiet strength are worth more than money, status, or any fortune. Subscribe for more emotional stories about second chances, hidden truth, and the moment a humble heart changes everything. Comment: "Love has no price tag," if you believe real kindness can change someone's life when they need it most.